There's no crowd. It's kind of tweaking a little bit. But you can what time is it? I think, but there's lunch from like 30.
Oh.
No, as I was walking up, I was like,
that. Get it out of their system. Oh, right there would be great. Yeah. Thank you. I need a mic. I need a mic. Who should I be looking at back there? I can't see with that light coming in those doors. Delegates, we need everyone in their seats. We're about to begin. The light's not working yet. I'm having a hard time seeing with those doors open because the light is filtering. Good morning, delegates. We are about to begin. I need everyone to take their seats. It is 9 o'clock. It is time for the meeting to start. While everyone is taking their seats, we're going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. The floor mics for delegates, when you are seeking to be recognized, are flanking the committee table that's down on the floor. You'll see one this way in front of the second row of tables, and one this way in front of the second row of tables. When you go to take your place in line, line up parallel to the stage. The mic to my left will be mic number 1, and to my right, mic number 2, in case you need that designation. When you speak, when you are recognized and you speak, the secretary would like to know your name and the county from which you come. Anything else?
I'm good to go. All right.
I would also love to have those doors closed if they are unlocked and people can get in. Mr. Wilford, are they locked?
That water is nasty.
up here?
No, he's sitting back there. He wants to be able to see the screens.
Okay.
Damn, my hair's a mess. That's fine.
Credentials
I got a voter button? Yay!
Oh, do I get one from Mike?
No. No, you don't.
How rude.
tried to call out slowly.
Oh, they're so cute.
What is that?
That's the car show.
Oh.
That's going to be fun.
I was like, I hope that's music.
Yeah.
I have no idea what order the delegates are in.
Do what?
What order they're seated in.
I don't know. It looked pretty chaotic.
And
Like,
I
it
can't
looks
see
like
the
the back has a lot of like onesie-twosie counties.
Yeah.
The bigger ones are
This
like blocked up
microphone
front.
is on, but doesn't need to be. Can we turn it
No,
off?
we don't.
Brightness down on this.
If there's a switch to turn it off, that would be great.
Sound team, can we get that mic off? Thank you. All right. Good morning. So, welcome, obviously, to the 2024 Libertarian Party of Texas State Convention. We made it. Good job, guys. We have a bit of a lighter delegation this year than we are used to, but it's still a full room. So thank you, everyone, for being here. There should be plenty of room to move around if you need to. Thank you to everybody who worked to put this together. This was not originally the best place for us to be, but my team and I have made the most of it, and I think it's going to be great. And so far it has been. So thank you very much for that. Yes. Okay, without further ado, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we need to hear from our credentials team. For those of you who are committee chairs, we do have a podium up here now. It is not mic'd yet, it looks like, so for now, we can just use the committee table microphone. Actually, we can probably pull that one over if it reaches. But anyway, if you are a committee chair, when it is your committee's turn to come up, hopefully we will have a podium that you can use to make your presentations. Credentials committee, they're on their way up right now to give us the report on the temporary role. Now it's appropriate if you're ready for it. Well, she's got to open the report first, and then, yeah, and then you can do that. Yeah, thank you. Is the mic on?
Hello?
There we go.
Okay. Yay! Good morning. I'm Christy Ford from the Credentials Committee, and I would like to start with our report that we had 51 counties hold conventions and that are currently still affiliated, with a total of 195 voters within the entire state. With these counties, we had, with the bylaws, where records had to be submitted by March 2nd. We had 8 counties miss that deadline by about a day-ish. A couple were a little bit later, but most were the next day. And in a minute, we're going to make a motion to credential those counties because they turned in their paperwork in good faith but missed the deadline. We have 7 delegates who are pending due to their voter registration is in suspense for a multitude of reasons. Most because they moved, and the system hasn't caught up with them yet. So we will have a second motion to credential those 7 delegates whose voter IDs are in suspense. And in our report, we have who's the delegates for each captains and SDs. We've had time for people to, if there was an error, if it was the wrong SD, to correct that. We've made the correction, so after this report, we will upload our final report. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Yes. From last convention to this convention, we lost 30 counties, which is 37%. We have retention rate.
Just a reminder, if you want to be recognized, please approach the microphones. Mr. Dixon.
Yes. Pat Dixon, Travis County, point of inquiry. If we add these 8 counties that were a day late, do you consider any potential risk to, say, ballot access or anything having to do with the Texas election code?
No.
Point of information.
Yes.
We lost 37% of our counties. Who was in charge of being a county affiliate?
John Whitford was the county affiliate lead.
Thank you.
Continue, Ms. Ford.
Okay, you ready?
Regarding the pending delegations, the Credentials Committee moves to credential the pending 8 delegations whose notices and/or records were not received by the deadline as outlined in the LP Texas bylaws. Those counties are Aransas, Blanco, Comal, Gillespie, Johnson, Llano, Nueces, and Smith.
Is there any objection to admitting those delegations to this convention? Hearing no objection, they're admitted. Thank you.
At this time, could we get the delegation leaders for those 8 counties to please approach the Credentials Committee table? Get the voter buttons. All right, we now have the second motion related to the specific pending individuals. These are the individuals whose voter registrations in suspense, mostly due to moves, post office issues, etc. I move to allow credentialing for the 7 individuals whose voter registrations are in suspense. Those individuals are Corey Whitney Gilmore of Dallas County, Miles Travis of Denton County, Russell Cunningham of El Paso County, Amy Pierce of Harris County, Kate Prather of Hopkins County, Brian Hulk of Llano County, Roman Gallardo of Travis County, and we will be validating at the credentials table that those folks have actually checked in and do that reconciliation.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
Just to let you know, the suspense delegate in Dallas County actually moved outside of the county, so I don't believe that.
Corey. Okay,
right,
we'll strike Corey.
Right.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to admitting the ones that Ms. Cowart shared with us? Hearing no objection, they're admitted.
All right. Would those individuals please step up to the credentials table, and if you are a delegation captain, collect the buttons for your counties.
All right, at this time, we have 168 people checked in. So quorum is 82. 2/3 is 108, and 5/8 is 102. Thank you. Quorum, 82. 2/3, 108. 5/8, 102. Thank you. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. 168 checked in. So to clarify, Ms. Ford, as delegates continue to trickle in and they come see you and they get registered and added to the roll, you will update us when it's appropriate. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to announce, which is already recognized, I'm sure, the temporary officers of this convention. Madam Secretary, Anastasia Wilford, myself, Whitney Billieu, Chair. As far as opening ceremonies go, it was just a matter of welcome everyone. Already done that, but I don't have anything else. Any other housekeeping? Anything that you think we should share? No housekeeping? Okay, all right. Oh, what's that? Oh, yes, and Richard Brown, our parliamentarian. You've seen him before, probably all over the place. Thank you for being here, Mr. Brown. Okay, so we do have an agenda. It was posted online, and that is what we are going to follow. That is prescribed by our bylaws, with the exception of two things that I added for the afternoon, an in memoriam video program that we want to share, and just a brief recognition of any Texas Lifetime members. So without any objection, we would like to go ahead and adopt that agenda. Yes, sir. 168 credentials, right? Okay. Got it? Okay. All right, is there any objection to adopting the agenda that was laid out? Hearing no objection, we have an agenda for the day. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is for the Credentials Committee to report on and for us to adopt our permanent role for the day. So we'll wait for them to get that finalized. I know we still had some people trickling in.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Hale?
Kevin Hale, Dallas, Texas. Would this be a good opportunity to make an announcement while we wait?
Is there any objection to an announcement from Mr. Hale while we're waiting for the Credentials Committee? Go ahead, Mr. Hale.
Thank you, delegates. Obviously, you know I'm running for Congress again. Some of you have seen the airplanes on your desk. I have a 4th of July parade coming up, and I would love to have about 5,000 airplanes, so I need to raise about $10,000. It's a big parade in Lake Highlands. It's very well attended. At the last parade we did this, we literally had children chasing our float to get our propaganda. So please, if you can, make a donation. If you want a plane for yourself, I have a few left. They're $7.77 so that I can buy 2 in replacement of the one you took. Thank you very much.
Credentials team, are you ready to report on the permanent role for us to adopt? It was pretty fun flying those airplanes.
Madam Chair, since we have time, can I do a fundraising pitch too?
Mr. Sharp?
My name is Lee Sharp. I'm running for House of Representative 137 in Texas. It is a one-opponent race. This will actually be my 4th time running. First time I got 11%, second time 18%. Last time I was in the 20s. I'm consistently growing, I'm getting more attention, I'm getting more residents actually coming to me, and so I kind of got to get serious. I was supposed to have NOTA up today, but my bank was being difficult, so if anybody wants to be a part of the inaugural deposit from my campaign this year, I'm accepting checks, cash with the appropriate things filled out, whatever, but I think I got a real shot running as a Libertarian. Please, yeah. Well, actually, no, I don't want to. But I would like to retire him.
Yeah, those
So any assistance would be welcome, both in fundraising and anything else. Or if you have events that you think might be helpful for me to attend. I'm definitely a freedom-loving libertarian, and my focus is on getting us in office. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Okay, hang on a second. Credentials Committee, are you still working on getting your permanent? In looking at the calculations of quorum and all of that from the numbers that you presented earlier, it was unclear to me if that 168 was actual seated delegates or if it was also unseated alternates. So we need to make sure that the quorum and the 2/3 and the 4/5 are based on actual seated delegates. And that was just, let's just make sure when you report in a minute that we clarify that. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Brown?
Oh, I think Mr. Roberts was first.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'd
Mr.
like to
Roberts.
make an announcement regarding my State House candidacy as well, if without objection.
Go ahead. And Mr. Westbrook, feel free to line up while there's an opportunity.
Greetings, I am Joe Roberts, and I am once again running for Texas House District 100, representing deep in the heart of Dallas. It is also a two-way race, this time uncharacteristically against a Democrat. It is a highly blue urban area, some of the poorest areas in Dallas. So I'm going after qualified immunity. I'm going after decriminalization of marijuana like I did last time, eliminating or lowering property taxes at the very least. And again, these are not academic issues for the people I'm talking about. When I went around last time, they asked me, if I vote for you, are you going to do these things? And that's what I'm running on again. So again, just like everyone else, your contributions are the fuel that runs these campaigns. Volunteering, anything you can help me with. It's robertsforliberty.com, robertsforliberty.com. Donate link is on the page. Thank you.
Microphone number 2, Mr. Brown. Oh, and after Mr. Brown, the Credentials Committee is ready.
Yes.
Mr. Westbrook?
Yes, fellow libertarians, I'm Ted Brown, and I'm running for U.S. Senator against Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. So there's a better Ted, that's me instead of Ted Cruz, so we're going to use that theme about different Ted, a better Ted, that sort of thing. Ted Cruz, as we know, has become like a caricature of a Republican culture warrior. Colin Allred is a drone of the Democrats who would faint if you had to read an economics book. So this should be an interesting campaign. It should be fun. And this is the second largest race in the country after president, given the population of Texas. So the U.S. Senate race in Texas is a biggie. There should be some attention placed on it because Cruz is considered one of the only Republican incumbents who's threatened in the election, even though he'll probably win. But who knows? Who knows? There's a lot of undecideds right now. And I should change my name to either undecided or someone else, like that guy who's running for president. Like literally anyone else, I think, is a guy who's running for president. But anyway, for the U.S. Senate race, I would appreciate your support, your help on the campaign. I need campaign staff, people to help me out on the campaign, and contributions, of course. tedbrown.org is my website. You can contribute there, or I have one of those little things from Square that I can stick into my phone if you want to come up and see me about that. But please support the campaign. It should be a fun one, and we want to go after Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. Let's give them hell.
We are still at ease for a moment. The Credentials Committee has one more thing to clear up. Also, Credentials Committee, can we get the 4/5 count, not 5/8? 2/3 and 4/5.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jack Westbrook. I'm running for State Board of Education for SBOE 15, which includes all of the Panhandle out towards Wichita Falls and all the way down to Midland. It's a big, big, big district, and I need all the help I can get in order to advertise in all those areas. I know a lot of people in those towns, and so I have some momentum. The incumbent Republican is from Midland, but I think I can beat him. And so, but I need help getting there. You can find me under Jack Westbrook, the number 4 TX, Board of Education on Facebook. If you'd like to donate, I would appreciate all the help I can get. And I'd accept donations here today. Just come see me when we're on a break or something like that. Y'all have a blessed day, and let's make it a great delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Westbrook. Back on 2.
Nolan Schmidt, Guadalupe County. I am currently running for Guadalupe County Commissioner Precinct 1. After getting almost 27% in the race in Guadalupe County for county judge, I decided to run again. There's not going to be an incumbent this time. The current county commissioner is retiring. However, this means that the floor is open for anyone. But unlike my campaign for county judge, this instead of 2 people, it's for 3 people. I'm still running on the basis of lowering property taxes and as well as replacing funding for county projects with a more voluntarism based goal, as well as protections for small businesses, as well as creation of an opportunity for all program for individuals with special needs. I am looking for any donations. You can, if you want to donate, you can donate at nolanhenryschmidt.com. You can vote. You can donate with anything. You can also donate monthly. I do have one monthly donor. Thanks to Patrick Mitchell, who's been my monthly donor, and pretty much I know that this is going to be a pretty tough race, but but if I can get the my goal of close to $1,500, I'm hoping to get signs as well as try to get media advertisements within the local paper and the local radio station. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. We'll take one more, and then we'll get the credentials report.
Thank you. Howdy, folks. My name is Bob King. My first convention. I'm having a great time. My wife and I are right outside the door exhibiting, so I hope to get to meet each and every one of you. I'm from Comal County. I'm running for Congress in Texas 21. If you like Ted Cruz, you would love Chip Roy. That's who we're up against, a guy who spends his whole life demonizing immigrants and otherwise refusing to solve any problems, just making the most political hay out of them as he can. And he will be running against not only myself, but a Democrat who comes straight out of the Anthony Fauci mandate machine of the Democrat Party. So the good news is that we're already up and running. We're in all the social media. We've already raised about $50,000. We're on our way to $100,000. We're serious. We're talking to the media. They know who we are. We're going to do a lot of good in this race. We're going to give Chip Roy hell. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Quickly, Miss. They're still deliberating there, so.
Okay, bring your phone.
Hello, convention. My name is Darren Hamilton.
Yeah.
Use this instead. I am running for House of Representatives, District 57. This is in Denton County. I'm going to make a statement that you will probably never hear from another politician.
Mr. Hamilton, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can the people on the phone in the gallery please step outside? Can the people in the gallery on the phone please take the phone call outside? Ms. Harlos. Ms. Harlos.
Karen.
Can you take your phone call outside? We can hear you up here. Mr. Hamilton, continue, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm about to make a statement that you probably will never hear from any other politician ever. I don't want your money. What I do want is your support. Send my information, my email, what have you, out to anybody that you know in Denton County. That's it. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, Credentials Committee is ready.
Currently have 158 seated delegates. So quorum is 83, 2/3, 210, 110.
No.
Sorry. 4/5, 132.
Okay.
Do you want 5/8? Because we have that one
Oh,
too.
no, we don't, but I'm not sure. Hang on a second.
We got all the fractions.
Yeah, that's not right.
158.
So that would be 80 for a majority for quorum. I'm not sure how you're arriving at the. Those are actual seated delegates and credentialed or seated alternates.
For quorum?
People who are actually sitting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 158. So majority should be 80.
It's taking it to the wrong number.
Okay.
Yes, give us a minute, Winnie.
It's in the formula side. We're going to tweak.
And 2/3 should be 106. And you guys can verify that.
Yes.
$127 for 4/5. You agree with that? All right, so based on what they just said, 158 seated delegates, which may include seated alternates. That means majority / quorum is 80, 2/3, 106, and 4/5, 127. Obviously, those numbers will change as more delegates show up. We'll get periodic reports. All we have left to do, Credentials Committee, is for you all to move the permanent roll so that we can adopt it and get on with it. Yes, they're checking something. I appreciate everyone's patience this morning. So quiet. Where's your counties? I'm trying to figure out where they are. So Dallas and Denton. Tarrant. Bear. Williamson. Microphone 1.
Thank you. My name is Girish Altekar. I'm running for U.S. Congress in District 37, which is most of the city of Austin. I'm running on the platform of economic libertarianism. I believe in economic freedoms very strongly. The District 37 incumbent, it's a very strongly Democrat city, so they have never heard of economic libertarianism. And I hope to introduce them. The goal is to break into double digits because the outcome is probably certain. But if you wish to support me, usdistrict37.com. Again, just usdistrict37.com, and I welcome your support. Thank you.
So now we need somebody from the community with those numbers. Yeah, the chair or
guess I'll do it since our chair of the committee is indisposed. I'd like to move to adopt the current roll as presented by the Credentials Committee. Whitney, would you like to give us the updated?
Yes. Again, it's 158 seated delegates that may include qualified alternates. Quorum majority is 80. 2/3 is 106, and 4/5 is 127. So we have a motion to adopt that permanent roll. It has been seconded. Is there any objection to it? Hearing no objection, we have a permanent delegate roll. All right, that brings us to nomination and election of our permanent officers for this convention. To be clear, we are doing party officers later. For now, we are just electing the officers who are going to do the secretary and the chair's jobs for this convention. Are there any nominations for convention chair? Mr. Dixon?
Pat Dixon, Travis County. I nominate Whitney Bilyeu if she wants the job.
I'm prepared to do the job. Yes,
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any objection to me doing the convention today? Hearing none, I will continue. Thank you. All right, and we need a convention secretary.
Howdy, Billy Pierce, Harris County. I'd like to nominate sitting secretary Anastasia Williford as convention secretary, if she will sign up for that job. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Any objection to Anastasia Wilford continuing to be the secretary for the convention? Hearing no objection, we have a secretary. Congratulations. All right, on we go. Next, that brings us to the good stuff that I know we've all been waiting for 2 years. A bylaws committee report. 9 minutes early. Hot damn. We have a bylaws committee somewhere, right? Anyone? Bueller? Oh, I see them starting to pop up. Yes, so while we're at ease waiting for the Credentials Committee to take their rightful place, are there any other candidates who are not going to be nominated, who are already nominated and just awaiting their general election? Anyone else would like to be recognized? Microphone one.
Oh, I should just leave this. Hey everybody, Dan McCarthy here. I just recently took over as the chair of Travis County. Really excited to be contributing more and more as this goes on. I'm also running for Texas District 48. I do also have only one opponent, like up in District 100. Mine's a very heavily Democratic district. However, my district is probably one of the richest in Texas. So I also will probably not be asking for money from y'all. I'm going to try to see what I can do in some of these really, really rich neighborhoods. And hopefully, yeah, I'll also give them hell this year. So have a good convention. Thanks.
No big deal. No big deal. Okay. Thank you. Microphone two.
Garrett Smith, Bell County. Rest assured, I am not running for office yet because the world's not ready, but we do have Caleb Farrell from our county running for Congressional District 31. He was unable to be here this weekend, so I'm just making a quick announcement for him, but he's running against John Carter, who's been in office 20-something years too long. He's campaigned over being, quote, mad as hell at Biden, and then ironically has done nothing but vote with Biden since getting his nomination. So any support we can get for Caleb, as everybody else keeps saying, we'll give him hell.
Thank you. Committee, are you ready? Some of them were hot. I know.
Hello? Ah, there we go. All right, hopefully most everybody has had a chance to look over the bylaws. Before we get started, I am going to go through some procedural things on how we're going to commence. Last night at our meeting, we sat down and discussed and decided who was going to be presenting each of these proposals. it was basically people claiming proposals, mostly because of the work they put into them, and then everything that wasn't claimed, I got because that's how it landed. You're going to see some of the proposals with an asterisk by them. That indicates that it is the recommendation of the committee that goes into effect immediately. If that happens, the procedure will be we will adopt the bylaw change, and then there will be a second vote that only requires a majority that will decide whether it goes into effect immediately or at the close of this convention. The last thing I want to point out is there is, I think, only one proposal here that says select bylaws. The threshold to change select bylaws in this body is only a majority, whereas everything else would be 2/3. With that said, I will let Paul start off with the non-controversial bundle.
Okay. Is that coming through? Okay. Just trying to make sure that's coming through. First off, the non-controversial bundle, for those who are not aware of what that is from past years, this will be our third year doing a non-controversial bundle. Non-controversial bundle is items that the committee unanimously agrees with passing. Everybody was able to put in basically a veto against it we had a voting point system of 1 through 10. Anything that got all 10s from all of us is in the non-controversial bundle. Things that we feel everybody in the convention could agree with. I will read off the titles here. I'm supposing everybody's had a chance to look over the items in the non-controversial bundle. The first item being the fixed select national delegate notice, notifications for select removal, simplified language cleanup pertaining to initial select meeting, voting membership, convening of committees, and county governing authority. I recommend that this convention pass the non-controversial bundle. Should I move it actually?
Yeah, I would move it on behalf of the committee.
All right, and I move proposals 1 through 6 of the bylaws report.
Are there any objections? So just so the body understands, proposals that come out of committee do not require seconds, but I think I do hear objection. Is that mic on?
No. Now, yes.
Okay.
Nathan Watts with Harris County. Request for information, just requesting if we could, in addition to briefly scrolling through them, just briefly summarize each of these changes verbally, I think would be helpful to the body.
Okay, so for, I'll read off the reasoning there. That should help give that summary for you there. So number 1, for fixing the select national delegate notice, phrases like reasonably possible do not belong in the bylaws. They create confusion or open to wide arrays of interpretation. So that's removing that reasonably possible to make it clear. Number 2, notifications for select removal. The chair of each county should be notified of any changes in their representation to select. This change increases transparency of state party operations. That's our intent there. Number 3, simplified language cleanup pertaining to initial select meeting. This is a simple grammatical correction for purposes of clarity that we're meeting there. Number 4, voting membership. We aren't required to issue a certificate of affiliation unless the person seeking the affiliate requests one. Additionally, we need to differentiate between the person seeking to affiliate and administer the oath, because it currently reads as if the person stamping the voter card is the same as the owner of the voter card, so it's just helping that language to be a little bit clearer there. Most of this is just language cleanup. Number 5, convening of committees. It's not present that we should encode in bylaws that a committee wouldn't meet officially sooner than the day before the convention. There may have been a purpose behind this bylaw in the past, but it doesn't seem to serve a purpose anymore, especially given the other bylaws relating to the activity of the committees of the convention. So all the committees will definitely meet before that just by their function, so it's not, that part's no longer needed. And number 6, county governing authority. When requiring means of filling vacancies, it makes first sense to establish a committee. Additionally, sometimes we have counties who would readopt their bylaws at convention. We don't include those with their convention documents, which is more than once resulted in us not having a copy of their bylaws at all because they just relied on the person before them doing their job. So this is also making it so they have to resubmit every time or to say they're not resubmitting there.
Anything further on this bundle? Okay. So I'm hearing a voice, but if you have something to say, you need to come to the microphone to do it.
Mike Coogan, Harris County. I simply object, almost procedurally from the very first one. I agree with the general logic of as reasonably possible, but I'd like to amend it to have an actual period of time in it. If it's 15 days, whatever that answer is, we probably need to make it explicit.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. So were you actually moving an amendment? If so, we need you to specify the time period that you would like to. Mr. Wilford reminds me that our bylaws prevent amendments from the floor because they were not previously submitted to this committee for review.
Fair enough.
So, thank you. So, we won't be taking any amendments on this, by the way. That is correct. The rules can be suspended to do that with 2/3. Mr. Thomas.
Arthur Thomas, Bear County. Can move to divide the question with, I don't want to do that. I'm just, for his purposes, would that be in order?
Yes.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, I understand.
Call the question.
The question has been called. Is there, it has been seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question?
Sorry, who called the question?
That was Art DiBianca, Travis County. Any objection to calling the question? Hearing none, we will proceed to a vote. The vote in this case is on the entire non-controversial bundle, up or down. And a yes vote means that you are wanting to adopt the bundle as presented. A no vote means you are rejecting the entire bundle as presented. We will do this by hand, a hand vote. All in favor of adopting this non-controversial bundle of amendments to the bylaws, raise your hand. All opposed? Wonderful. They are amended.
All right, next up we have number 7, amending voting procedure for roll call voting. This is one of the ones that the Bylaws Committee is recommending for immediate adoption. Basically, within our bylaws, for this convention, and luckily we haven't had to use it, or someone hasn't tried to use it, but 1/5 of the body can call for a roll call vote. That would mean each of us, one at a time, stating our vote on an issue. It would take quite a long time. And currently, if we want a counted vote, that would take a majority of us. So it's actually somehow easier for us to do a roll call vote than a counted vote. So what the Bylaws Committee is proposing to do is to remove roll call vote from that, change it to a counted vote, and then if you want a roll call vote, you have to do a majority motion as per normal procedure. So on behalf of the Bylaws Committee, I move Proposal 7.
All right. The committee has moved Proposal 7, amending voting procedures for roll call voting. Is there any objection to adopting this amendment? Hearing none, it is adopted.
Now, on behalf of the committee, I move that this bylaw go into effect immediately.
This is just a majority vote.
Yes.
Mr. Wilford is proposing that we institute this new bylaw immediately. If you are in favor of that, you would need the majority of your fellow delegates to agree with you. Is there any objection to it? Okay, it is done.
All right, next proposal, and this is one kind of near and dear to my heart, is number 8, electronic voting, removing chair's discretion. So this one actually went into effect while I was the chair of LP Texas. And I overall agreed with the bylaw that allowed us to take electronic voting. We had previously done it under some interpretation of mail voting for email to be mail, and then we kind of like made ballots and emails. It was a whole thing. But we wanted an explicit electronic voting procedure. And in that procedure, I was actually on bylaws at the time. There was a wording in there that basically gave the chair a default veto on a motion. There was a time limit, and if the motion wasn't put up in a time limit, the motion just died. And at the time, it didn't register with me that that's what was going on in the bylaw. There were other members of the bylaws committee who said that it did register with them and it was intentional, but it didn't register with me. And it was a power I never exercised. I didn't really see it as being right for the chair to kill a motion of the committee. But it's kind of been hanging out in our bylaw since then. It hadn't been widely exercised. And the purpose of this motion is to clean that up and to not give the chair the discretion to not recognize a motion made electronically. So with that said, I move on behalf of the committee, Proposal 8, electronic voting, removing chair's discretion.
Point of information.
Mr. Ford.
So I agree with the intent of this completely. I'm right there with it. My question is what is the recourse if that vote is not actually pulled? So it goes past that 1 week and a vote isn't called. What happens then?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it's actually something we debated. Should we put a punishment in there? Ultimately, this committee decided it didn't need a punishment. Robert's Rules of Order already has procedures for if somebody is out of line. It could be something as simple as somebody calls the chair up and is like, whoa, it's been a week, you hadn't put the vote up, and they go, oh my God, I didn't, and they go up and do it. But it could be something more serious where the chair is blatantly refusing to observe our bylaws, in which case it might be the case that Select needs to censure them or even seek removal. So we feel that Select should judge on a case-by-case basis what, if anything, is needed, and Robert's Rules already clearly covers punishment procedures.
Thank you.
Mr. Golston? Okay. Anything further on Proposal 8? All right. So Proposal 8 has been moved. Is there any objection to adopting Proposal 8? Hearing none, it is adopted.
For number 9, that's going to be our convention secretary, Hannah.
Okay, cool. So Proposal 9, over the course of this term, several attempts were made to fill positions on Select as they came vacant or were vacant at convention, and it wasn't until midway through the term that somebody was found to fill that position. And time again, we ran up against a problem where either one person was nominated, got unanimous support from everybody who participated, but because of the way the rules are written, there wasn't enough participation from counties that we weren't hearing anything from, and so that position went unfilled. The current count that I have on the number of delegates elected to this convention that impacted is 40, and I know that that's low. So basically, the changes that we made here, the very first one where we are just writing out that a county has to have bylaws in place determining how they would cast the ballot for Select vacancies, is really just putting into the bylaws the practice that's already been there. Otherwise, the rest of the changes are geared toward ceasing to reward inactivity, a lack of involvement, and allow the people who are actually participating in these districts and who are calling the meetings and who are doing the work to get the representation that they're looking for, rather than leaving their voice vacant on Select. So with that, I move the bylaws proposal number 9 for filling select vacancies.
Point of information.
Microphone 2, I saw Mr. Golson was up here.
Absolutely.
It's a point of concern. I suspect, bylaws could only be amended every 2 years. I believe it would increase the flexibility if we had, so for example, cast their bylaws on file with the party, cast their bylaws or policy manual as on file with the party. This would enable things to be handled more dynamically and this isn't something that would need to be necessarily rigidly defined at a county convention. This is something I would trust the county executive committees to handle more dynamically.
Thank you, Mr. Golston. Microphone 1.
Okay. So last year I couldn't finish off my select term because I was teaching K-12 and college and writing a textbook, and I gave a month's notice that I was going to be leaving the select body. We couldn't fill it because a county didn't even vote, and so they didn't get those numbers. So if I'm reading this correctly, does 7, a little bit further up, take care of that issue where if a county does not show up to the table, it's not held against a possible select member?
Yeah, so in the case of District 4, which you're referencing specifically, there were 4 counties that, as the bylaws currently stand, were considered eligible. Only 2 of those 4 participated. The 2 who participated unanimously voted for the person who was nominated, voted for one of the 2 people who were nominated. But because that did not reach a majority of the eligible counties, that person wasn't elected. And this bylaws proposal would fix that. It would fix that specifically in...
I think it's number 7, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, each eligible county may submit 1 ballot to the party indicating a vote for or against. No, sorry, further down. Yeah, so number 10, where it says any position is considered filled when a nominee has received votes in favor from a majority of all eligible counties that cast a ballot.
Wonderful. Okay, love that. Love that change. Good change.
Microphone 2, Mr. Bledsoe.
Yes, Daniel Bledsoe, Tarrant County. I just have a point of inquiry. Does this mean on number 7, line 7, does that mean 30 days of after nomination to get nomination, and then an extra 15 days after that? No. Or is it an extra 45 days? After the 30 days? Golly.
Yeah, they got plenty of time to get it done.
Right. Okay. And is that what the original one means as well?
Yeah, so that specific change I implemented in a few places, rewording it so that timelines were mentioned first rather than kind of hidden later on in the, I say hidden, just having to dig through stuff. I wanted to put the timelines at the front of each line item rather than at the back.
Okay, so
that didn't structurally change anything, just made it easier to flow through later.
So theoretically, you could take 75 days to fill a select vacancy?
It could. It wouldn't take longer than 75 days.
Right, as long as all the counties came together. Okay. All right, thank you.
Microphone 1, Mr. Westbrook.
Jack Westbrook, Randall County. And I have a point of personal privilege, I guess you might say, and I apologize to the committee and everybody else if this is information I should already have. But would it be possible for the committee to address any dissenting views from the committee as to why it was not a unanimous issue, and all the rest of them just briefly tell us, why it wasn't unanimous? That would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Westbrook.
I guess I'll address that. All our proposals were not unanimous. I will say most of them were either unanimous or didn't have against votes. There were just abstentions. There were a few that had been voted against on a few people, but I mean, there's 7 of us, so not more than 3 people ever vote against one. And on none of our reports, on none of our items were a minority report submitted. Maybe at some point there may be a committee member who may want to discuss their vote further, but on most of this report we were pretty well unified. So
I would actually like to address that a little more specifically. We didn't go into a lot of detail about the ordering of these. A lot of the proposals were adopted unanimously by the committee. The non-controversial bundle, basically in order to figure out what order we were going to present things in, we ranked each proposal 1 through 10, and only the stuff that was that received all 10s from everybody got put in the non-controversial bundle. So that was not just a grouping of what got unanimous support from the committee. A lot of the proposals you're going to see in here were unanimously supported by the committee once we did our final vote on them, not just the ones in the non-controversial bundle.
Thank you. Microphone 2, Mr. Baker.
Yes, Chris Pager, Travis County. Madam Chair, this is a point of personal privilege. I move that we possibly turn up the temperature in this room.
Thank you. I've been the only one asking so far. I have already asked our on-site team what the procedure is for trying to get that addressed, so we will be looking into it. Thank you so much. I definitely know we don't have access to the thermostats ourselves, but thank you. Yes, I see a lot of people shivering out there, including myself. Okay, microphone 1, Mr. Polsky.
Nathan Polsky, Collin County. First, I'm nice and warm, so don't make it up too warm. First, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules to consider an adoption for item number 7.
To consider an amendment?
Yes,
you mean?
an amendment.
Okay.
Sorry. Can I speak on that real quick? Or
for which item?
7. The voting begins 30 days after the initial nomination.
Oh, but of proposal 9.
Yes.
7 as in VII.
VII.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. I like a lot of the changes on here.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Polsky is moving to suspend the rules to consider an amendment for 9.7. It has been seconded. This would require a 2/3 vote in order to suspend the rules. Then we would be able to consider the actual amendment being made. Okay.
If we suspend the rules, does this apply just to this one specific issue, or does this apply to the entire Rules Committee report?
For my interpretation, it applies to right now the specific thing that he is trying to do. Yes, it is not going to be perpetual.
Do you want me to make that amendment?
All right. Okay. Can you state the motion that you want us to consider before we decide whether or not we want to suspend the rules for it, but don't expound on it?
Yes. I would just like to change the 45 days to 15 days after hearing the previous clarification.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules to consider an amendment that would change 45 days to 15 days on 9.7. Did I hear a second? Okay, is there any objection to suspending the rules to consider this amendment? There is objection. Do we debate? Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll proceed immediately to a vote on whether or not to suspend the rules for this purpose. Yes, for the purpose of considering that motion. And it again is 2/3 vote to do this. So all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed? I would consider that 2/3. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
So I make a motion to amend item number 9 VII to change the 45 days to 15 days.
I'm not going to wait that long for seconds anymore, y'all. We got to keep moving.
Objection.
Thank you. Okay, there's objection. Mr. Polsky, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. So 45 days from start to finish, I think, is a good amount of time. 75 days when we are looking to replace somebody on Slack or an officer or any other position, I think that's just way too long. If counties, most county bylaws, as far as I'm aware, you have 10 days, 14 days to provide notice to your voting members that you have a meeting upcoming to vote on something like this. So that shouldn't be something that takes 45 days, 30 days to actually get going.
Thank you. Mr. Wilford, please speak to your objection.
Yeah, so this is actually something the committee discussed at points throughout the crafting of this bylaw. The main reason we kicked it out so far is because these votes are not being submitted by individuals. This is not something like in this body where you get to send off an email and or cast a ballot and it's done. These votes are being submitted by county parties. Now, some county parties' bylaws may state that the chair can do it. Others may state that their executive committee can do it. And others may state that it takes a meeting of general membership to cast these kind of votes on select. It's up to the individual counties how they cast these votes. Furthermore, different counties have different notice requirements to call a meeting together, and some have what are called regular meetings where the meeting just falls, let's say, on the 15th of every month. And depending on when that 30 days fell, that could create real problems for counties getting together to get their stuff together to send us a vote. So we decided that an appropriate amount of time for the individual counties to get their membership together as needed to cast their vote to us was in order.
Okay, interrupting motion. Yes, sir.
Arthur DiBianca from Travis. I just want to remind the chair that there is a time limit of 20 minutes on any particular motion. I think we're getting close.
Thank you. So the way our agenda is set, where did it go?
Did suspending the rules not address that? It's a shame. Well then,
No, because we're suspending the rules to do something else. So let's see. Mr. DiBianca, you're referring to our existing rules about how long to spend on.
That's not a point of order. That's a request for information or a personal privilege. We're talking about how long we have left, and we're spending time talking about it.
Hold, please. Mr. Pierce, you're not recognized. 5E5. Limits on discussion. No qualified participant shall speak for more than 5 minutes on any one motion. Pardon me? 5E5 Part 2. The discussion on any motion shall not exceed a total of 20 minutes time. So that would mean any motion, including the main one that we are considering, which is the adoption of the amendment number 9.
How much of that time have we now spent talking about how much time we have left? Time-saving motions don't.
Not enough.
So after consulting with the parliamentarian, the motion itself sets a new timer. So each motion, including the amendment itself, will have a 20-minute time. If only it were the other way.
Madam Chair, Billy
That's a
Pierce
terrible noise.
requesting to be recognized.
Hold on, please. I need to. Who was the last speaker at the microphone?
Mr. Polsky.
Polsky. Okay.
No.
And then we had the point of order. And so, I think we are back to microphone
Actually, I think
2.
Mr. Wilford was the last one to speak, wasn't he?
He let me go in front because he's going to speak on something.
Who is keeping time?
Yeah, Mr. Wilford went last.
You want me to keep time?
Sure. Thank you. You're great at that.
I can do it.
Mr. Bledsoe, microphone 2.
Yeah,
You are speaking on the amendment, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to speak for the amendment. 15 days is plenty of time, especially after 30 days of getting together, whether you want to nominate somebody for select, and then so you should have after that time to vote. So that'd be plenty of time. I think 75 75 days is, I think, way too long. I think just to get that select, especially when you know what's going on. So I'd like to speak for this amendment.
Mr. Pierce?
Billy Pierce, Harris County, speaking for this amendment. Does everybody feel the uncomfortable feeling you're feeling right now, how long this is taking to just have a discussion about this? Does everybody feel that need, like, can we get this doggone done and move on? That's the feeling that I'm trying to avoid. Mr. Wilford's points about the difficulty of the county bylaws and the various different county bylaws can be easily addressed by updating your county bylaws. All right? In Harris County, we updated our bylaws to allow for and plan for something just like this. And if you need help with your county bylaws to update them to make it so that you can move, so that you can be nimble, so that you can get things done, feel free to give me a call and I'll give you a hand, or whomever the new the county affiliate coordinator is. You know, that would be a great thing for a county affiliate coordinator to do, to make it possible for counties to be able to make decisions quick as a county affiliate. So if you need the help, I'm happy to help you. But folks, we don't want folks missing select meetings. We want our executive committee to be populated and useful and getting the work done. And replacing vacancies on it is key to getting the work done. This is not a drinking club. This is a political party. Let's amend this. Let's get the time frame down. If you need to change your county bylaws, I'll help. But let's get some doggone work done.
Mr. Golson, were you speaking on this? Mr. Golson, are you seeking to be recognized on this item?
Not on the amendment, not on this amendment.
Mr. Dixon.
Pat Dixon, Travis County. I speak in opposition to this amendment. The Bylaws Committee exists because they have the time to consider every combination, every result that could happen, and Mr. Wilford has explained why he came up with the number he did. You have to be careful when you make amendments like this because it can have adverse consequences that you haven't considered. They have. I trust this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Okay. Mr. Westbrook, were you in line to speak on this?
Against the amendment,
okay,
yes.
and then we'll hear from the secretary as well. Go ahead.
Please bear with me. I'm here to speak against the amendment because the committee has worked really hard to work on all this stuff. They're very talented people, and we can spend all day here doing stuff like this, or we can just accept what they've done, and they've done a good job. You had time to look at it ahead of time if you so chose. And when the appropriate time comes, I'm probably going to motion that we just accept everything that they have done, blanket. That's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Wilford, I have a question. How long has the amendment or this proposal as it stands now been published for delegates to review?
Yeah, this one was in the original draft we sent out before the final. Paul, do you remember when that got sent out?
February?
2 months? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and amendments, there was a deadline communicated to the delegates about when to submit amendments, correct?
March 23rd, yes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, you have something you want to add?
I think that this amendment is well intended, but what I would ask the body to do is to reject it. Because what we can do over the course of this next term is observe how long it generally takes for one of these positions to be filled. As it currently stands, even among counties that participated, we had counties voting right under the wire. So I think the better thing to do here is to accept the proposal as the Bylaws Committee presented it, give it a shot and see how it works, and it may be the case that come next convention we want to tweak it and decrease that time if the thing that we find out is that we're running through these a lot faster, or that we are having to put in inordinate amounts of effort to get people to participate by the deadline. But I think that's something that we can absolutely take note of over the course of the next term and address with the next Bylaws Committee.
Thank you. You're waiting for something else.
Nathan Watts, Harris County. Call the question.
The question has been called. Seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question? Then we will call the question and we will vote on this amendment. The amendment, again, is to change proposal 9.7, where it says 45 days to 15 days. If you are in favor of that, you will vote in the affirmative by raising your hand. If you are against that, you will vote no when I ask for those votes. All right. All in favor of adopting this amendment, raise your hand. And this is 2/3. 2/3?
This is majority.
Okay. Just the majority on this one. Okay. All opposed? Ooh. That is close. All right, we're going to count. All in favor, you're going to have to raise your hands, and we're going to go left to right by table. Actually, I'm going to do this. Delegation captains, stand up. Delegation captains, please stand up. Can you please help facilitate counting your delegates as I do this? I'll count them, but I want.
I like this. That's good. Practice for national.
This is all in favor of this amendment. Raise your hand.
There was a reason I didn't put that within the non-controversial.
As I get through a row, you can.
I was like, yes, I'm in favor of that, but I'm not putting in the non-controversial because I thought somebody might want to do things.
Ran off over there.
Ran off to help.
70 to 63. The motion passes by a vote of 70 to 63.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Just the amendment, thank you. All right, so we are back to the main motion. Pardon me? No. Yes, the main motion as amended. I see, yes, go ahead, Mr. Watts.
Nathan Watts with Harris County. I'm speaking against the overall motion. Generally, I do like many of the changes, and I also very much trust the committee in their careful consideration. I'm concerned with the overall effect. I agree with the problem, of course, that we've recognized of vacancies being left vacant because the counties that need to cast a vote don't get together and not enough votes are counted. However, one of the primary responsibilities of a select candidate is that they are driving activity among affiliates and encouraging new affiliates to form. So I'm concerned with a select candidate who is not able to actively get the existing county affiliates engaged enough to come and cast votes. So I think that the current problem might be a intended function of the bylaws that we should be cautious about giving up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Mr. Holcomb, are you seeking to be recognized on this item?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Trey Holcomb, Tarrant County. As somebody who's been through this process, I support item 9 is the question before this body. Is that correct? And I just moved the previous question.
Mr. Holcomb, I was having a bit of a hard time hearing you.
I'd like to move the previous question.
Thank you. The question has been called. We are, it was seconded. Any objection to calling the question? Great. We will now proceed to a vote on proposal number 9. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? It passes.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Westbrook?
Jack Westbrook, Randall County. Reading the room, this probably is not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway, just to expedite our process here today. Once again, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and accept the committee's recommendations on the changes en masse at this time.
Right. Thank you.
I tried.
You did indeed. All right, there is objection. All in favor of suspending the rules to do what Mr. Westbrook suggested, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we currently will not. Thank you, though. Thank you, though.
All right.
Worth the effort. All right, we are on to number 10.
Point of personal
Correct.
privilege.
Mr. Polsky?
I would just like to take a moment to remind the body that we are here to approve changes to the bylaws, changes to the platform. If we wanted to accept everything as is, why are we here?
Moving on to number 10.
Number 10, establishing stability and transparency in the bylaw amendment process. There's kind of two parts to this. There's 2 strikes in the beginning that are mostly just grammatical cleanup. They really have no substantive effect on the bylaw as a whole. The more substantive part is the addition at the end. And the main point of this, there's kind of a weird situation, and this is actually not an uncommon situation, but it does make things weird, where you can amend the bylaw to amend the rules, and therefore make it really easy to amend our rules. I haven't seen any attempt to doing this, but this is just putting a safeguard in there, very similar to the safeguards we currently have on our statement of principles, increasing that threshold from 2/3 to 3/4. And so with that said, on behalf of the committee, I move proposal 10.
It does not require a second. Is there any objection to Proposal 10?
Objection.
Okay. Mr. Wilford, did you speak to it enough, you think?
I feel I have, yes.
All right. Mr. Thomas, I saw you object. Would you like to speak to your objection? Who else objected? You did? Okay, go ahead, Mr. DeBianca.
Thank you. Arthur DeBianca from Travis. Real quick, I would like to take a second to thank the Bylaws Committee for their work. This has really been obviously a lot of work, I think we can all say. Yeah, please. Having said that, I would like to speak in opposition to this amendment. I really do not see the need for it. I do think this adds a wrinkle, a little bit of complexity to our amendment process that we don't need. The difference between a 2/3 threshold and a 3/4 threshold is not very large. I can imagine a situation arising, for example, where a complicated amendment is proposed, and buried in that amendment is actually a change to Article 6. Now, according to this rule, that entire amendment would require a 3/4 vote. It might slip past us. We might adopt it with a 2/3 vote. Then later on, somebody brings up the issue and says, well, actually, there was an Article 6. That's a 3/4. It's a different threshold. What happened? Did we really pass the amendment or not? The 2/3 threshold for changing bylaws is a tried and true threshold. It's been around for a long time. Let's keep it simple and just have 2/3 for changing the bylaws. Thank you.
Request for information, Lee Sharp, Harris County. But before I do, I also want to thank the Bylaws Committee for their support of Specs Liquors, because I'm sure it took a lot. Passing this bylaw right now, what we're about to vote on is a simple majority, is that correct?
2/3.
2/3 for this bylaw. The rest is simple though, right?
No, it is all 2/3, but when we suspended the rules to consider an amendment, the suspension of the rules was 2/3, but the amendment itself only took majority.
Okay. Then in speaking against it, just to be clear, we're using a lower threshold to work ourselves into a higher threshold, and we may never be able to get out of it because getting 3/4 of libertarians to agree on anything, oh God.
Mr. Thomas, microphone
Arthur
2.
Thomas, Bear County. Art DeBianca already said it. I just want to emphasize this covers Section 6, which is an entire section and not just this snippet of change right here. So Section 6 is a full section. I want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
I see what you're saying. You are pointing out that Section 6 has other things in it besides just changing the bylaws. Besides
permanent.
Right, okay. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of adopting Proposal 10, raise your hand. All opposed? The motion fails. So we will not adopt number 10. Okay, on to 11.
Up next, we have procedures for platform committee reports. This is going to be another one that the committee is going to recommend go into effect immediately. I do want to point out that that recommendation was only made after consultation with the platform committee and upon their recommendation to us that we recommend to you that it go into effect immediately. So this changes our current procedure for platform reports. Speaking to it myself, because I was a lot of the main author here, this is largely in part to the rule suspension that was made 2 years ago to speed up our platform committee reports. I don't know how many of you were here, but we got into a cycle where we were amending the amendment and continuing to amend and going on and not passing anything. So what this would do is allow the committee proposals to come up immediately for an up or down vote. If there is something that you wish to amend or debate, we vote it down. Once we vote it down, it will come back up on the floor, but at that time, it will be debatable and amendable. So the committee gets one crack at just getting 2/3 of libertarians to agree without any debate or amendment. And it is real easy to vote down. The process goes pretty quickly, and we end up getting through quite a few things where there are lines at the microphone of multiple people all speaking in favor when we could have just voted in the first place. With that said, I move proposal 11.
Is there any objection to
Objection.
proposal 11? Microphone 1, Mr. Lozano.
Frank Lozano, Cameron County.
Nice suit, by the way.
Thank you. I stand here to object to this this rule proposal. I encourage the body to vote it down. May I speak to the objection?
Please.
Oh, yes. So the platform is very important, obviously, to us libertarians. We organize, some of us organize our lives around it, and we make policy decisions on it. Even though most of us definitely have an opportunity, or all of us have an opportunity, and we should have all read it and considered everything, it is helpful, in my opinion, to hear from everyone in the party about what it is. I'm concerned that if there's a simple up or down vote and 2/3 people say, hey, this is a good idea, we might not even be able to go to the next, like for instance, the minority report. There's a very good one tomorrow I think that people should consider. That's my concern. I want to hear. Sometimes I personally change my mind when I hear other people debate the amendments to the platform. I think it's a very good thing that the body has an opportunity to make those amendments and to, in real time, as a body, consult and kind of struggle over those different changes. And I think it should be a little bit harder to amend the platform, since it's pretty good as is. And this platform committee is very good. This rules committee is very good. I thank you all again. However, let's think about the future. We might have a bad platform committee in the future. It's possible. So that's why I speak against it.
Thank you, Mr. Lozano. I apologize, Mr. Wilford, for not giving you the opportunity to speak to your motion.
I feel I adequately spoke to it in the introduction.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, microphone 1.
Pat Dixon, Travis County. I speak in opposition to this proposal, specifically C2, which would remove the ability for somebody to speak before there's a vote. I'm an engineer. I like to optimize, right? I like to be efficient. But there's times when efficiency is not really the goal. I've been to a lot of conventions, and I've seen this happen many times. I believe it was 2020 State Convention where there was a platform plank, and everybody got up here and said, let's vote for it, let's vote for it, let's vote for it. And then somebody got up and said, this issue affects me personally. And it changed everybody's vote in the room and voted that plank down. It's important that we have this opportunity every 2 years to hear from some delegate that may change our perspective. So I'd ask that we vote this down.
Mr. Ford?
I speak against it, and just for some clarity, for those of you who are new, it's a kind of a rare occurrence that Pat and I agree on things, and I am in complete agreement with him on this one. We had a situation a while back where we had a thing about relationships, about how people can get into a relationships and it's none of the government's business. And very quickly, a lot of us saw a problem with the wording of that plank platform, which was it lacked the terms consenting adults. And at the time, there were about 3 different factions at that state conference or state convention. And all 3 representatives from those different groups for the different governor elections got up here and spoke and said, we need to add this, because if we don't add this, we're going to be labeled pedophiles, people who support this. And with that conversation, it passed unanimously, if I remember correctly. But that would not have happened if we did not have the chance to discuss these planks before they were voted on. So for that reason, I would encourage every one of you to shoot this one down, because sometimes discussions can point out possible problems. Thank you.
Is there anyone else seeking to be recognized on this item? All right, we'll move to vote. All in favor of adopting proposal 11, raise your hand. All opposed? The motion fails.
Madam Chair, Nick Hearn, Brazos County, I'd like to move for a recess for 10 minutes before we move on.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Nick Hearn.
All right, we have a motion to recess for, you said 10 minutes, sir? 10 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
It was seconded. Is there any objection to that?
Objection.
There is objection. Oh, boy. Okay. Mr. Hearn, do you feel that you need to express why you want this? I think the coffee and tea and water is speaking already. Yeah. Those of you who objected, seriously? You? Okay. So we will proceed to a vote on whether or not we're going to recess for 10 minutes. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, go pee.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Return at 11. Oh, I'm sorry, 10:43.
There's a timer on the screen.
Pardon me. We will try. Yes. Yeah.
I will.
speaking to Scott's, who was interested.
Time is up.
Yeah,
Let's get back to work.
Jesse multiple times. She said, we're doing the training. And part of it that they said is they wanted to unify groups, which I get. I understand where they're coming from. But they insisted that be there.
But he was making it seem like it was the we dropped.
Oh, it was a political.
Oh, I understand that, but
I've got the text right here.
I'm going back and
just
forth.
between me,
It's for tomorrow.
it was.
Other business.
I think the trainings are great.
All right, we got to get back to order here, folks.
In charge, and he was running.
Please come in, take your seats.
You see quorum, 80 people?
Make sure they got feedback as much as possible. They didn't feedback.
20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Yep.
All right. Here we go. We are continuing the Bylaws Committee report. I believe we are. Did we start number 11?
We
No,
finished
it.
number-
And 11 failed. Right? Yes, it failed. All right, we are on number 12. I hear a point of order from somewhere. Mr. Westbrook? Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, do you want updated numbers?
I do.
Okay. Current numbers, total seated 161. Quorum is 81. 5/8, 101. 2/3, 108. 4/5, 129.
I hear 161 total seated.
Yes, ma'am.
81 for quorum and majority.
Yes.
108 for 2/3.
Yes.
129 for 4/5.
Yes, ma'am.
5/8, we don't.
Welcome.
Jacob Law. Need this? Do you want this?
Thank you.
All righty.
Are we ready, Madam Chair?
We are.
Okay, thank you.
And for, I believe I have 11 and a half minutes left. Oh, actually, we're starting over on 12 now.
Yeah.
Yep, go for it.
All right, proposal number 12, clarify absence language. This particular proposal, there is an exception on attendance at select meetings. So let me go back another step. Within select, if you are absent for 2 concurrent meetings, you're removed from the body. There is an exception to that for meetings that are called on more of an emergency basis without as much notice given to the body in order to facilitate allowing those meetings to be called without penalizing people who can't show up on a very fast turnaround. That bylaw that allowed for the exception was made, I think 2, maybe 3 conventions ago. And at the time, there were discussions on the intent. No, it had to be 3 because I was chair during the first implementation. So there were discussions on the intent of that, in that if a select member can quickly turn around and attend a meeting, they should get credit for attending. It should break their concurrent absences. But we don't want to penalize them if they don't. We want to give them a reason to show up. We thought at the time that just putting that the absence didn't count would be clear in the interpretation of that bylaw. But since then, there have been some different interpretations under different administrations on whether or not an attendance counted, since an absence didn't count. And because it wasn't specifically in there, it's gone to an interpretation. So this amendment seeks to clarify that and add C, that attendance shall be counted at any meeting of the select where select that requires quorum. And with that said, I move proposal 12 on behalf of the committee.
Mr. Wilford, I'm going to ask a clarifying question. Apologies if I didn't hear it. This covers electronic meetings, is that correct? That makes electronic meetings equivalent to in-person meetings in terms of whether or not missing them affects your continued position on the board.
So the type of meeting that this is most likely to affect is electronic meetings. I could also see phone calls, which we don't really do anymore now that we have electronic meetings. But to broadly answer the question, it's any meeting with less than 2 weeks' notice, which almost always is an electronic meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp?
Request for information, Lee Sharp, Harris County, and candidate if you want to vote, contribute. Would a electronic vote count as a meeting for that?
No, it's in a completely separate part of our bylaws.
I have a question. Nancy Neal, Travis County. What constitutes attendance? Because I was on select. I missed a meeting because I was deathly sick. The next meeting I was there, but I missed the roll call in the morning and was not allowed to participate in the meeting. Meanwhile, there were other members that were there for the roll call and left at lunch and never came back. So what constitutes attendance?
So what you're talking about, there's currently a different bylaw that says that removals for missing 2 meetings happens at roll call. So you can be late to your first meeting, but if you miss a meeting and you're late to the second one, you get removed. It's been that way as long as I've been involved in the party. There is a separate proposal that addresses changes to that. This proposal changes nothing about that. So if adopting or not adopting this won't affect that.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll proceed to a vote on Amendment 12. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? The motion passes.
For number 13, validity of conventions, I'll turn it over to our convention secretary.
Okay, prior to addressing number 13, I just wanted to address a question that was...
Convention secretary.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
The other secretary.
Yes.
The other one.
So we heard earlier from the Credentials Committee about a bunch of counties who didn't file their, or say 8 counties that didn't file their notice on time, but that didn't tell the full story of what happened. There were another, I think it was 15 counties who the Credentials Committee went ahead and credentialed them because they submitted an event to the LP Texas website, not actually sending it into the state party, or technically, I guess, to the state chair. And if they hadn't done that, we would have had an additional 15 or so counties that didn't remain affiliated. So this particular change still has the requirements that a county send in the information for their precinct and county conventions. It takes away the language that says that we will only recognize their conventions as valid if they've done these things. I'm all for having high standards and striving to be the best that we can be, but the party's not quite ready for that level of strictness. So I would encourage the convention to adopt this proposal. We can get back to this. We can get back to something a lot more strict once we are bigger and more organized. We're just not ready for it yet. With that, I move proposal 13 on behalf of the Bylaws Committee.
Thank you. I see microphone 1, Ms. Cowart.
Jesse Cowart, Montgomery County. I rise to vote in favor of this motion, also as a member of the Credentials Committee. This is a classic example of a bylaw that was put in with good intentions and then had unintended intentions. So I think everybody is aware that we've lost more than 30% of our counties due to a disaffiliation. We had a number of them that we had to have motions on this morning just to be able to credential them. The Texas Election Code puts enough bureaucratic red tape on us without us hamstringing ourselves from a bylaws perspective. So I do hope that everyone does vote in favor of this motion.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Was there any objection?
Pardon me?
Was there any objection? Was there any objection to the motion?
That's a good point. I didn't ask for any. Was there any objection to this motion? Okay. So yes, Mr. Roberts.
Okay,
thank you. Mr. Wilford had asked to be added to the queue also to speak as an individual on this matter. So Mr. Wilford, you're next, and then we'll get to you, Mr. Pierce.
Yeah, so the thing I wanted to say, and I was actually prepared to object to this to say, and I'm speaking in favor, but I think it needs to be said on this floor. So the bylaws committee, and I was the main kind of go-between voice, was consulted by the credentials committee on how to interpret this and what to do with it. And I've already heard discussion on the floor about what the effects of us accepting those counties are. I gave the opinion in working with our parliamentarian that this is something that the delegates could move forward and adopt. And I'm going to tell you the thing that I think is the strongest evidence for that, and why this should be stricken immediately and never brought back, no matter what place we're in. The wording of this bylaw, as it stands now, is a precinct convention shall only be recognized as valid if. I don't believe this party has the right to not recognize your conventions. You hold a convention and you tell us what to do, not the other way around. So with that, I speak in support of this.
Microphone 1, Mr. Pierce.
Billy Pierce, Harris County. I rise to speak in favor of this. Simply put, if you want more of something, you incentivize it, right? You subsidize it. You want less of something, you tax it. Do we want more affiliated counties running candidates? I think we do. If we want more affiliated counties running candidates, if we want more people, affiliated as libertarians and actual voters, then we do this, right? We've got enough folks running pushing against us. We want more, not less. My request for information is simply, what would the enforcement mechanism be if a precinct or a county utterly failed to document their conventions appropriately? Is there a fallback enforcement mechanism if somebody just goes off the doggone rails?
Yeah, so the enforcement mechanism, which we actually observed here today de facto, is we don't have documentation for your county. The credentials committee puts a little star by your name, and this body gets to decide if you're valid or not.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Talley, microphone 2.
Scott Talley, Williamson County. Without hearing any objections in here, I'd like to call a question.
Objection.
The question has been called. Seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question?
Objection.
I hear a point of order.
Yes. I might be a little fuzzy on this point of order, but isn't it customary for somebody who raised the objection to speak towards that objection? So far, we've only heard people speak for. I believe you had the objection. Isn't it customary for the person who speak against it to be able to speak against it?
Hold on a second. So, you were the one that made this motion?
I made the motion, yeah.
And you objected? Okay. I know that there was objection. I missed it, though. Sorry, I did not see you there. Was someone in front of you at the microphone? Okay.
I got up recently.
Okay. And you were objecting to the motion itself,
motion,
the main
yes.
motion. Okay.
That's correct.
Mr. Watts, I apologize. Go ahead.
So I just want to give some comments on why to possibly consider not voting for this. I appreciate the intention behind it, and I agree as libertarians we're trying to get rid of red tape. The challenge is that it's now, the wording of it is creating different levels of requirements in our bylaws and the requirements that are forced upon us in election code. Currently, the way that the bylaws are written to be consistent and have the same requirements as election code. For example, 0.63. While I disagree with election code, currently election code is written that requires precinct chairs to submit this. The concern I have is that if we adopt this and say, well, according to our bylaws, it's fine if the CEC submits the records, then we have less strict requirements in election code, and I worry that people will see this and think that if they do it this way, they're okay, and they'll miss the more stringent requirement of election code. Yes, the bylaw still has in there that you have to do it consistent with election code, but let's be real, people aren't going to go look at that. They're going to look at this and say, okay, if I follow these rules, I'm safe. And I have the worry that this opens us up to having conventions, including this whole convention, deemed ineligible whenever the state secretary wants to clamp down on us for whenever we're inconvenient to them. So yes, red tape is inconvenient. We don't like as libertarians, but we put this here in place to protect us against whenever Republicans or Democrats want to kick us off the ballot. They can't, because we've held ourselves to at least as strict as the Texas election code.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. We are now going to proceed to a vote on calling the question. That was his objection wasn't missing his objection was an oversight on my part.
Excuse me.
We are now proceeding to a vote on calling the question. It has been called, and so all in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed? All right. So now we will proceed to a vote on the proposal, which is number 13. All in favor of proposal number 13, raise your hand. All opposed? The motion passes. Yes, and just to explain what happened there again, the question was called prior to me recognizing the objector, and I felt appropriate for me to allow him to go back and do that, but then we were still going to call the question. Thank you. Number 14, Mr. Wilford.
Number 14. I expect this one to be fun. NOTA has been an important yet controversial character in this party forever. And here they are again. So, in the past, we've had various systems of voting and using NOTA, but we've always included NOTA in the way we've done things in one thing or another. The interpretation of how NOTA should be used, as well as a grammatical element of what does none of the above mean. If you check none of the above, can you check a different box? Would none of the above be invalid if it was in the middle of the candidates, so it only accounts for the ones above none of the above? Have been controversial points in this party for a while. Throughout that, different presiding officers have had different interpretations on whether you could check NOTA and another candidate using approval voting. At the last bylaws meeting, bylaws report, I think it was, we went around the whole issue. We said, we're no longer going to have NOTA as a single option. You're going to be able to vote yes or no on every single candidate, and that way we don't have these issues of how that goes. Every candidate individually runs against NOTA. Well, an issue has been brought up with that, actually a couple. One, there have been some people that have brought up that they feel it drives animosity within the body to have people voting no on them. But the one that to me personally is more important is the voting software we use doesn't know how to facilitate this well. So what the committee has elected to do is go back to pretty much what we had before with regard to NOTA, but we have put a line in there to clarify that when using approval voting, a ballot shall be considered valid when more than one option is selected, including when none of the above and other options are selected. That way, there is no more interpretation to be made on how that works. It's in the bylaws, and we can all move forward. So with that said, on behalf of the committee, I move proposal 14.
I see lines forming. Microphone 1 and microphone 2. Which one of you was there first? Okay.
Pick one of the arts.
Okay. Oh, he is yielding to you.
Okay. Thank you, committee, for your work. I understand what you're dealing with. So I understand. I actually love OPA-Vote, and I've used it myself. And as someone's been involved with vote counting, I understand the difficulty and the delays and the frustrations. However, I have to object to this because I think it weakens the concept of none of the above, however you want to word it or view it. I think it really weakens that. And as an element of our party that we all, or most people consider important, I want to at least speak to defend it. So in the general elections, I'm sure we've all heard it's a wasted vote. I can't vote. Basically, in a single, when you can only make a single choice in an election, you have to play this game of considering how other people vote. You You have to think, how are other people going to vote in an election? And that's what approval voting solves. That's the purpose. So when we adopted approval voting, that again, we were living by our principles, right? Trying to show that we use elections because we think there's better systems out there as libertarians. But when you take away the head-to-head race of NOTA against each individual candidate and move it down to a single choice as if it was another candidate, again, when you're facing a ballot, you're going to have in your head that little thought, how are other people using this? So it could be you're scared to use it because other people might use it too much, and you'll start knocking out people you don't want to knock out because you don't know how many people are going to vote for it. Or you might have in your head, I'm scared of doing that, so I won't use it. And that's what I'm afraid of. People will be scared to use none of the above because of how it works on the ballot now. And you should not have that thought in your head. A good balloting system lets you express your opinion at your maximum without worrying about how other people are voting. And this takes that away. And I understand the concerns about being able to use tools that don't save us time. But I'd rather look for other ways to do that, like nominating outside the convention, having ballots prepared ahead of time. Whatever we can do, we should look at that. But I don't want to hurt NOTA by doing this.
Mr. DiBianca, microphone 1.
In the interest of helping Mr. Wilford and the rest of us have fun, I have an amendment. I presented it to the committee a week ago. I have a copy for the convention secretary if she needs one.
So this one was presented to the committee. So it would require 2/3.
So I would like to essentially raise a point of order on that question.
Even though you submitted it, it was brought to my attention that you submitted it after the deadline. Our rules say that we don't consider amendments except by 2/3.
I think that's incorrect.
Suspension of the rules. Okay.
I'm referring to, here we go, 5D47D.
Can you give me a page number?
Page 22.
5D47A?
D. After minority reports have been dealt with, there were no minority reports, any delegate may move to amend the recommendation providing that the substance of such proposal shall have been considered by the committee or shall have been presented to the committee for consideration. Mr. Wilford's referring to a different section of the bylaws that are about making new proposals to the committee. This is a section that refers to making amendments. Of course, I needed to see what the committee report was before I could offer my amendment. This was given to the committee a week ago. I believe that's a reasonable amount of time. I think I have the right under the bylaws to make this amendment without a need to suspend the rules.
I'm pulling up ours. Hold up.
Okay. Pardon me?
All right, I'm ready with mine whenever you are ready.
What's that, Mr. Wilford?
I'm ready with the other bylaw whenever you are.
Okay. You have like a counter to his, is that what?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So bylaw 5D4V, right to submit proposals to the committee. So this section deals generally with submitting proposals to the committee. Section B, no later than 30 days after the first meeting of the committee, that committee shall adopt rules governing the time and manner in which voting members may present their proposal to the committee and adopt a final date where consideration of new proposals submitted will be considered. Such rules shall be made available in a manner easily accessible by any voting member. So our position is that anything submitted after this deadline wasn't considered by the committee.
Okay. So. I'm going to go ahead and say that we're going to, in order to take this up, we will need a suspension of the rules to consider it. So if that is what you would like to do, now would be the appropriate time.
So move.
Tell us what it is we are attempting to suspend the rules to do, just what,
Sure.
state your motion that you would make if we allow the
Well,
suspension
I
of the rules.
hesitate to read the whole thing, but the purpose of the amendment is to change the section on multiple seat balloting procedures, which is what we're going to use for National Convention delegates. It's what county conventions will use in 2 years to elect delegates to the state convention. It's a rewriting of that proposal to remove it does a couple of things. The main thing that it does is it removes what I believe is the confusion about voting for nominees and also voting for none of the above.
So your amendment, if we choose to take it up, will affect which part? Is it multiple parts?
It's just, it basically replaces the section of the committee proposal on multiple seat balloting procedures.
So VE82. Okay. All right, so Mr. DiBianca is moving to suspend the rules, which requires a 2/3 vote, to consider his amendment, which he claims he submitted, he did submit to the committee after the deadline. Wants us to consider it today, and that it would be an amendment to replace VE82 in the bylaw committee proposal, which he can't read to us yet until we agree to consider it. So, a 2/3 vote required to suspend the rules to consider hearing from Mr. DiBianca about his amendment. Is everyone clear on that? Is there a second for this suspension of the rules motion? Second. Is there objection to suspending the rules for this purpose?
Objection.
Okay. We will now proceed to a vote on whether or not to suspend the rules to consider this amendment. Again, 2/3 required. All in favor of suspending the rules to hear this amendment, raise your hand. Opposed? I think it passes.
I think so too.
Do you agree? Okay. All right. So, we will suspend the rules. We will hear Mr. DiBianca's proposal.
Is it possible, I don't know if this is possible, is it possible to display that anywhere? Do we have any kind of mechanism to do that?
Does the secretary have it?
She's got a copy, yeah.
Okay. She's working on it.
Is she going to type it up? Okay, wow, that's
I believe
that's
that is
awesome.
what she is fiercely doing right now.
So here's the concern, is that the committee proposal allows voters to mark their ballots. This is approval voting, so you can mark as many people as you want on the ballot. We all understand that, I think. There will also, in the committee proposal, be a none of the above blank. You can also mark none of the above. So you can vote for 10 people and none of the above. I don't understand what that means. And I'm concerned that many of us may not understand what that means. And at the county conventions in 2 years, new people are going to show up and they will not understand what that means. So what this proposal does is it replaces that with language that says, there's no none of the above. If you want to vote none of the above, you cast a blank ballot. That's how you're saying, I don't approve of any of these people, okay? You vote for as many people as you want on your approval voting ballot. We retain the none of the above power because a nominee must receive votes on a majority of the cast ballots to be elected. So if you cannot get approval from a majority of the voters, you can't be elected. And that's how we protect none of the above. If the body does not want a particular person to represent us, say we got 80 seats and there's only 50 people running, under a normal approval voting system, they're all automatically going to get elected as long as they can get one vote. But if we don't want a few of those people for whatever reason, this could be true at the county conventions in 2 years or 4 years from now or whatever, we can, if those individuals do not get votes from a majority of the voters, they will not get elected, no matter how many seats there are to be filled. Now, I want to point out that the committee proposal also has that requirement. You need a majority of the votes to get elected. So in that respect, both systems are good, in my view. What I'm trying to resolve is the problem of confusion related to voting for candidates and also voting for none of the above. The committee proposal says that in that case, the none of the above votes will be tabulated, and it's unclear to me how that will be interpreted or what that will mean. I also have there's a measure to, oh, it's up here now. So Section G has a tie-breaking.
The proposal is now on the screen, by the way.
Yeah, this is the amendment proposal. Section G says that if we need to break a tie, which is very common when you have a large number of people in an approval voting situation, you're having to break ties for alternates is common. It just offers a default of a random drawing, but if the body wants to do something else, they can override that. Section I corrects what I think is an error in the committee proposal about, the committee proposal says that you have to retain the right to vote against people. I think the purpose of the committee proposal is to get rid of against voting, and which I agree with. So the amendment says that we can change the system, but we have to retain the principle that you need a support of a majority of the voters in order to be elected. I guess if anyone has any points of information about the amendment, I can answer those.
Okay, the amendment has been posted and shared with us. Mr. Wilford.
Yeah, so I rise to speak against this amendment. And I'm going to speak against it in kind of two sections. Section 1 is going to speak to his question of how would you interpret...
Mr. Wilford, one second. I just realized you moved this. It was seconded. Is there objection to the amendment?
Objection.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I rise to object in two different ways. One, to answer the question of what it means to cast a vote for NOTA and a candidate or multiple candidates. And then two, I think there's some serious mechanical problems with the proposal or the amendment being made to the proposal. So to address the first question of what it means, we can imagine a scenario in which we are voting on local dog catcher. And the candidates for local dog catcher are Hitler, Stalin, and Ron Paul. And we can now imagine a person who would walk up to a voting booth under approval voting, and under approval voting, the instruction is, check any option you approve of happening. Well, he doesn't approve of Hitler or Stalin. He's probably going to be mean to the dogs. Ron Paul would probably be a pretty good option for dog catcher, but he's also completely okay if we don't have a dog catcher. Not filling the role is within his wheelhouse of acceptable options. If you don't allow people to vote for NOTA and another candidate, it does two things. One, it doesn't allow him to truly express his opinion on the matter. But two, one of the things approval voting fixes as a system is it removes ways that we can invalidate ballots to make it harder for people to throw your ballot away. But this reintroduces that. It reintroduces another way to invalidate ballots, because if we adopt this rule and somebody inevitably checks NOTA and another candidate, their ballot will be thrown in the trash. That is the ultimate result of this bylaw. So that addresses the what does it mean to vote for NOTA and another candidate. The second part, the mechanical part of this, is he is talking about submitting blank ballots as a form of expressing your opinion. There's two issues with that. Currently, Robert's Rules instructs us not to count blank ballots. We assume that something happened and paperwork got mixed up in there, and that these ballots aren't supposed to do anything. But currently, we use a system called OPA Vote, and OPA Vote has no means for you to cast a blank ballot. If you pull up OPA Vote, don't check an option, and click Submit, it will say you haven't done anything. You can't submit this ballot. I further object to the idea that random lottery is the default way that we dispute ties, but I honestly, I think the other issues are so overshadowing that that's hardly worth mentioning. So with that said, I urge you to reject this amendment.
Microphone 1, are you speaking for or against the amendment?
I have a request for information, that's all.
Go ahead.
Billy Pierce, Harris County. Request for information. Would this proposal or the committee's proposal apply to every single county affiliate and tell every single county affiliate how to run their elections at their county conventions and precinct conventions? Is this making a decision for every county affiliate in the state?
I do believe, I'll have to pull up that section, I do believe that section is under conventions generally, which does, but currently it does too, like that, it's changing what it's telling them, but it's not changing that.
Thank you.
Okay. In favor of the motion or the amendment?
In favor, hold on, microphone 2, are you for or against?
Against.
You're against. Microphone 2, are you for? I'm for. Okay, go ahead. Me? Yes. We're going to go back and forth and then also try to do for and against.
First off, I want to say I don't really like the trivialization of trying to compare a government-run dog catcher election to our internal rules that we can decide what we do. It's a specious argument, in my opinion. It really is. The second thing is a 46-year experienced software designer and developer that says our software can't do this. You gotta suck tool. The problem for me is really simple. If somebody submits a ballot and there's nothing on it, this is none of the above. And I think this comes down to the semantic thing that libertarians believe you must be able to say none of the above. And a lot of that comes from the fact of there are elections in the world where if you don't pick somebody, it doesn't count as a vote. That's really where the problem comes down to. There has to be a solution by which we can do this, because I cannot logically figure out what the hell it means when you say none of the above and you pick 6 people, or 8, or 9, or 2, or whatever. How do I get none? Well, we know that now because none of the above was selected. That really is the crux of the problem. And perhaps the solution is just something as simply as having a spot on that ballot that says, I am voting. And have that on the ballot as I am voting, register. Now there's one counted, and you ignore the count. And then you have a none of the above that actually makes sense. Thank you.
I need someone against. Microphone 1, is there anyone against the amendment on microphone 1? Anyone? Oh, you are against, Mr. Sparkman.
Oh, thank you.
Sean Noda, Sparkman, Tarrant County. And it is on my badge, so. So I'm against the amendment. If you think that like simplifying the rules and making it so that new people can come in by adding this, Robert's rules in itself is complicated. This amendment, simplifying it, I mean, you have to learn something you have to read anyway. So like removing NOTA from the ballot it doesn't seem to me like it's valid. It's part of who we are as libertarians. I know some people disagree with that, but being able to say NOTA is what differentiates us from the other parties. They were constantly being told we have to vote for the major parties when we want to say none of the above. I think taking away the option for us to say out loudly, none of the above is contrary to who we are. And that's all I had to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Sparkman. Mr. Brown.
Yes, Ted Brown, Travis County. I want to speak in favor of the amendment. First of all, I do want to get rid of the negative voting for individual candidates. I've never seen why that is approval voting. Like in Travis County, if it's approval, you vote for somebody, or you don't vote for somebody, you don't vote negatively against someone. I think that's kind of malicious, actually. So the initial proposal is better than what we have now, but I think that it's pretty clear to me that none of the above means none of the above. You either vote for you vote for people, or you vote for none of the above, which means you've rejected everybody. Now the phrasing is such, we can probably talk about that, but I think we should be able to, if you don't want anybody, which I don't know how many people ever vote for none of the above for a whole list of 95 people or something. That's kind of unusual, but they could. But what this takes into account is that we want to make sure that a majority of the delegates have elected the people, like for National Convention delegate, for example, and but that we aren't voting against individual people. And I think this amendment protects that, and it's a good idea, and I think we should adopt this amendment instead of the original committee proposal.
Anyone against at microphone 2?
I just have a point of information.
Or speaking on. Just speaking on. You just have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question.
About this proposal?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. Under the current rule, Ed Adams, Navarro County. Under the current rules, let's say you have 8 candidates for 5 positions, okay? You only like 3 of them, okay? So you vote for those 3. You don't have to vote for 5 candidates, and you don't have to sit there and say, okay, I want these 3 and then none of the above. Is that the current way it is, or? Yeah, so you just vote for those three, so there's not, so the only reason you would vote no, none of the above is you hate all 8 candidates. Or you don't hate them, but you don't approve of them.
I don't know that that's true.
Okay, all right.
Anyone against?
Joe White, Harris County. I need this point of information to help clarify how I might approach the amendment as well as the underlying motion from the committee. Assuming that we're using OPA vote to do our votes going forward, if this amendment passes, how will that affect using OPA vote? If this amendment fails, and assuming that the underlying motion passes, how does that work? If the amendment fails and we go with the committee support, how does that affect OPA vote? And finally, if the committee's platform change suggestion passes or fails to pass, what is our voting procedure?
Madam Secretary, I think she's conducting the oath of vote, so I think she'd be best to.
So, if this amendment passes, we will very likely be using paper ballots because rather than listing NOTA on the ballot, we're saying that a ballot cast with no votes on it is NOTA, which removes the ability to abstain unless we're doing paper ballots, and an abstention would simply be not turning in your ballot. So if this amendment passes, we're doing paper ballots. That's what's happening. If the committee's proposal passes, then what you'll see is a ballot with all of the candidates' names on it and NOTA, and you will be able to select any combination of those that you want to. If the committee's proposal does not pass, then what you will see is we'll use OPA vote. Each candidate will be listed twice with the word for next to their name once and the word against next to their name the second time. And then also NOTA. Does that clarify everything you need?
It does, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, since that was a point of information about the amendment, may I be permitted to respond?
Please.
Certainly no expert in OPA vote, but I do believe that we have the option of including an option on a ballot that says, I am confirming that I want to cast this ballot. And if you check that box, then it doesn't matter whether you voted for anyone else or not. It's just a mechanism that we're using to deal with this technical limitation of OPA vote. Seems like a pretty easy way to get around the issue.
Thank you. We just heard someone speaking for. Do we have anybody against at microphone 2?
Yeah, I was originally going to speak on the main motion, but this definitely applies here as well. I'm the author of the long superseded now 2006 NOTA language, and this is something that came up with this again. I very much am in agreement with Wilford that yes, you absolutely should be able to vote for none of the above for governor and somebody else for governor that you probably suspect has no chance of winning. This came up and bit us heavily in 2012. As somebody who would vote on it, I very much have cases where yes, I want to vote for a candidate and none of the above and treat them as equally valid options. This said, I'm not a fan of approval voting anymore. Thank you for your time.
Anyone for at microphone 1?
Hi, I'm Steve Ravitt. I'm from Hayes County, and as a county chair, I would have to explain this rule definitely at a convention. I would have to probably refer to the language and think about it in order to do that, versus the empty ballot, which seems straightforward and doesn't require any kind of explanation. And as far as the software goes, simply adding empty at the bottom of the ballot, you can check that off, and then your ballot is not empty from the software's perspective, but it does not vote for anybody and counts as none of the above. So I support the amendment, and I would also like to call the question.
Okay. All right, the question has been called. Seconded. Is there objection to calling the question?
Objection. Point
There
of
is
information.
objection. Hold, please. We have about 3 minutes. Mr. Wilford, I'm not sure if you're still keeping time on this, but I have about 3. Okay, that's close to what I have on the amendment itself, just to let you know. I think we still had 11 minutes left on the main motion. So
Point of
you have
information.
go ahead.
Yes. Paul and I just tested OPA vote, and if you do submit a vote without actually clicking on anything, you do get an error message. You can click continue. On the back end, it shows that no valid vote has been cast, which means that then they have to go further down the rabbit hole to see who actually responded to a voting request. So here's my point of information. If this passes and we are now no longer able to use OPA vote, because this effectively breaks it, do we have the printer, paper, and ink supplies needed to print out 100+ ballots for the rest of today? Multiple times.
I can say that we possibly have that for one time.
For one time. So that point of information. So would that effectively mean that we are now scrambling for a solution on how to vote for the rest of this weekend?
Potentially.
Thank you very much.
The question has been called. All right, we will now proceed to a vote on calling the question. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Passed. Thank you. All right, we'll now proceed to a vote on the amendment. It is, I believe, still up on screen for you to review. All in favor of Mr. DiBianca's amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? The amendment fails. We are now back to the main motion with, I believe, 11 and a half minutes left. Give me 1 second to reset my timer. Mr. Wilford.
12:32.
Were there people still in line to speak on the main?
I'm sure there were.
Okay. All right. We'll start with microphone 1. Go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to speak in favor of it.
Your name and your county for the secretary, please.
April and Montgomery.
April Gosling. Gosling, correct?
Yes.
G-A-U-S-L-I-N-G. Montgomery County. Go ahead.
I just wanted to speak in favor of it because I do think that being able to oppose the position itself is a great thing. Plus, it still keeps the option of no opinion. For instance, if within approval, if you just happen to not know enough about the candidate and you don't want to speak for or against them in your approval. So anyway, I'm just being supportive of it in that way.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
David Johnson, Williamson County. So I had a point of information on this. So when I was looking at the multi-seat section here, one of my concerns that I saw was when you cast a NOTA vote, it appears that what it does is progressively raises the threshold as more people vote NOTA. So could we get into a situation where enough people don't understand what NOTA means and they vote for a bunch of people they like and then also hit NOTA, where you have an 80 or 90% threshold and we end up without delegates because everybody ends up getting undercut by that except a few people?
Okay, I will try my best to keep this response brief without going to a whole nother round of debate. So the answer to your question is yes, 90% of people or even 100% of people could vote for NOTA. That point has actually been raised to the committee as part of this proposal. It's weird to me personally that it has been raised to the committee as an unintended consequence when the thing you're describing is using NOTA. We don't consider using NOTA an unintended consequence of NOTA. So yes, that could happen.
Okay, just that would be my concern then, is that people don't understand that's what they're hitting when they're hitting NOTA, because NOTA doesn't normally mean I'm going to put it up to a 90% threshold or something like that. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now 4 minutes past our scheduled lunchtime. There is lunch waiting for those of us who have purchased it, and we do have bylaws continuing after this, so we will automatically just continue. The folks that are at the microphone now, if you can remember the order you are in, we can come back and start exactly as we are now and continue with bylaws.
Been here a while.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Any objection to that? Can we do this? Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, we are recessed for lunch. We will come back. We're scheduled to come back at 1 o'clock.